So what does my spiritual material body look like? Well, humans in their spiritual material bodies, what do they look like? What about ethnicities? What about gender? What about disability? We don't know. But one thing we do know, it will be the most particular and exquisitely distinct version of you imaginable. Nothing about you will be what wasn't created. It will be all about you being fully alive in Christ, as St. Irenaeus would say, and in the Spirit. So all the particularity, diversity, vibrancy, freedom, wholeness, creativity, spontaneity, playfulness, everything you could ever ask for and more, that's what's happening in the Spirit, in the hidden realm. And that's meant to usher us into a life of conformity here on earth, so that we might be so heavenly minded that we are so much earthly good. You ever heard that kind of used derogatorily? Man, he's so heavenly minded, he's no earthly good. Well, they've split the two pieces of wood and the rope, and they've pulled them completely apart, as if there's a dualism going on. Up here and down here, they're disconnected. No. We're meant to be so heavenly minded that we're so much earthly good. Keep your mind on things above, Paul says. Keep your hearts on things above. For you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. He's telling us keep looking, focusing on the unseen, so that you'll be a lot of good in the seen. And there'll be a day when we stand before Jesus Christ and him crucified. As the Lamb who was slain, we'll see how he relates to our woundedness, what we've done to other people, what other people have done to us. All the things that weren't created, toothaches, all the things that weren't created, we'll see him take everything, having taken everything, and put it to death on the cross. And we'll also see our lives created and redeemed in him. I hope that every single person at that point would see the revelation of God and worship him in spirit and in truth in such a way that they wouldn't want to go where the devil and his angels are meant to go, because they've given a chance to see who they really are. Why would you want to be who you're not in that moment and live in the lie and in the falsity where the father of lies wants you to live? But 1 Corinthians 13 is the love chapter, and I love the fact that it's coupled with this passage about the mirror. We see through a mirror dimly now. Someday we'll see face to face. We will then know as we're fully known. Right now we can't really know. Are you okay with not really knowing yourself? I think it's okay, as long as you know the one who knows you and will then reveal, and you will then know as you're fully known. As long as you know that's going to happen, when all the uncreated stuff, I'm not sure if this was created or not, well, you'll know then. It'll be clear. It'll be full clarity when Christ returns, and not before. So in light of that, we need to quit judging each other, because we know there's a judgment. Grace doesn't mean there's not a judgment. I think judgment's the greatest thing about grace there is, because judgment is the interpretation of our mixed up lives by Jesus Christ and him crucified, and the wheats and tares of our lives are finally separated, and we can then move ahead without being encumbered and imprisoned by the flesh and all the things that drag us down, whatever those things happen to be. Again, we can't really know what they are. But man, that's going to be awesome. Judgment is good. Judgment is the backside of grace. The wrath is against the old man, the old self, the part that's not meant to continue. Aren't you glad for wrath? It's the backside of God's fiery love. It gets rid of all the dross. And for us to judge somebody is to take away their belonging, to try. I put try in there. That's really important. We can't take it away. To judge someone is to try to take away their belonging in Jesus Christ, in the Christ dimension of their lives. And therefore, to try to take away God's celebration over them. God will take great delight in you, Zephaniah says. In his love, he will rejoice over you with singing. That's happening. Do we hear it? A lot of times it's clouded out by the bad stuff. He never stopped singing. We never stopped being his friend. His beloved. In this age of confusion, we make judgments as best we can. We don't judge, we try to make judgments and discernment by the Spirit because we know that that's going to be the case. In this age of confusion, we make judgments as best we can, but we cannot give validity to ourselves by our thoughts, feelings, or self-perceptions. And we cannot take someone else's validity away by our thoughts, feelings, or self-perceptions. Phew. That feels good. Let God do it. I can't imagine anybody, once they fully see those chairs turned, I can't imagine them not wanting. Who said that when the hospital monitor shows a flat line that that's the end? Have we limited God to what we see on a hospital monitor? We walk by faith, trusting in the validity of the gospel, resisting the temptation to judge others or to judge ourselves based on what others think or what we think of ourselves. Instead, we should judge ourselves based on what God says about us. And finally, this temptation was one that Dietrich Bonhoeffer struggled with himself. You might know that he was a martyr, one could say, killed by Nazis at a concentration camp, even though he wasn't a Jewish man. He wrote this poem at the end of his life, and this is my final piece. But a lot has been written about Bonhoeffer being gay. Whether he was gay or straight, I think this is something we can all relate to. Who am I? He starts out confidently because that's the persona he puts on for the guards. Who am I? They often tell me I step from my cell's confinement calmly, cheerfully, firmly, like a squire from his country house. Who am I? They often tell me I used to speak to my warders freely and friendly and clearly, as though it were mine to command. Who am I? They also tell me I bore the days of misfortune equally, smilingly, proudly, like one accustomed to win. Am I then really all that which other men tell me of? Or am I only what I myself know of myself? Restless and longing and sick like a bird in a cage, struggling for breath as though hands were compressing my throat, yearning for colors, for flowers, for the voices of birds, thirsting for words of kindness, for neighborliness, tossing in expectation of great events, powerlessly trembling for friends at an infinite distance, weary and empty at praying, at thinking, at making, faint and ready to say farewell to it all? Who am I? This or the other? Am I one person today and tomorrow another? Am I both at once? A hypocrite before others? And before myself a contemptibly woebegone weakling? Or something within me still like a beaten army, fleeing in disorder from victory already achieved? Who am I? They mock me, these lonely questions of mine. Whoever I am, thou knowest, O God, I am thine. Let's say that last line all together. Whoever I am, thou knowest, O God, I am thine. Friends, you don't know who you are until you know whose you are.